On this week's episode of Amari Purple Talk, what should a Prince documentary include? Another 1999 Super Deluxe single dropped, Bite the Boots, and more. Amari Purple Talk starts now. Welcome to episode 12 of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, your imagination soloist, and I want to start by thanking everyone that has tuned in. Big shout out to the folks in Michigan, big time, and I hope you're enjoying the show. Please leave your comments on the show below or on my website, www.amaricommunications.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Amari_now and on Instagram at RichardCole_Amari. And with that out of the way, we're going to dive into our first topic. And our first topic is Don't Let 'Em Fool You, advanced track, my reaction. So, last week, another single from the 1999 Super Deluxe edition dropped. This one is Don't Let 'Em Fool You. This was obviously recorded during the 1999 sessions. And it's on YouTube. It's on all the streaming services. And this is, I think, what the third or fourth advanced track that we've received from this album. Once again, this basically just heightens my excitement for this deluxe edition. As far as the track itself, I like it. I like it a lot. Obviously, it doesn't fit the tone of the actual 1999 album, hence why it's probably an outtake. But I do enjoy it. I think, for me personally, it fits more. It would probably have fit better on maybe a Time album or a track you would have given to someone else to take a crack at. I think it also would have fit best maybe like if in some alternate universe, if Dirty Mind never existed, this would have been like something that would have been kind of like a second Prince album, kind of in that style to me. I also kind of hear like maybe this could have gone to like a Patrice Rushen or something, or somebody of that caliber as a song. But like I said, I do enjoy it. It does have, like I said, maybe earlier kind of Prince sound to it. But it also has a lot of the, Minneapolis ingredients that you'd hear sort of, 1982, 83, 84 in that as well. So, again, like I said, it's really heightened my excitement for the album. Personally, I don't need to hear another advanced track. I know we're probably a little less than 3 weeks away from the actual release of the 1999 Super Deluxe edition. So I'm fine. Like I said, I don't need to hear another advanced track from this point on. Just bring on the CD and I'm ready to listen to it. So, but like I said, for those of you who haven't heard it, like I said, it's on your very favorite streaming service, whether you have Tidal, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, so whatever your choice of streaming platform is. So definitely check that one out. So Don't Let 'Em Fool You, another advanced track from the 1999 Super Deluxe edition. For those of you who have heard it, what are your thoughts on it? Do you enjoy it as a track? Would you have preferred it on the 1999 album? Do you believe it was better left in the vault and just as a sort of a bonus track for what we're getting with the Super Deluxe edition? Leave a comment below, and that's going to end our first topic, and we're going to move right on to our next topic. And our next topic is, should a piano and microphone CD have been released with the Beautiful Ones? All right, so last week was my spoiler review of the book The Beautiful Ones. I was going to do maybe some additional thoughts as I was listening to the episode just the other day. Is, of course, like I said last week, there's so much that you just couldn't put it in. And I thought about doing some additional thoughts, but decided at the last minute to kind of throw that out, and really because of this topic that we're on now. One of my theories or thoughts is because the beautiful ones, again, for obvious reasons, the narrative wasn't as complete as it should have been. Given around the time that he was interviewing Dan Pippenbring for the position of helping Prince put this autobiography together, a lot of those meetings were done during the piano and microphone tour. And for those that are unfamiliar with that tour, it was basically, something that Prince had never attempted before. There was no band, and it's all in the title, a piano and a microphone. But what was unique about this particular tour was the openness. Again, if you haven't read The Beautiful Ones, I recommend you read that book. I know some people are just getting it now and just starting to dive into it. Like I said, this is probably getting to some spoiler territory. So if you haven't read it, again, go back, listen to everything up until episode 11, because the episode 11 has the spoilers. But go back, catch up on episodes of Amari Purple Talk that you missed, finish the book, then come back, listen to last week's episode if you missed it, and then jump with this one. So with all that out of the way, what was unique about this tour was how open he was, just like he was in the book. Lots of anecdotes in between songs regarding his life. It was basically him telling his life story throughout this concert. And in addition to some of the anecdotes, which a lot of things we've never heard before, these are, some serious, interesting revelations. So again, for the caliber of artist that Prince was and how guarded he was about his life and privacy, this tour was definitely an eye-opener. And it looks like it was definitely something that was to sort of, parallel The Beautiful Ones. Because, like I said, those 50 pages are, just amazing with the openness. This is a Prince that, we would hope to have experienced one day, but in the end, we only got about 50 pages worth. But where I'm going with this is that I think it was a missed opportunity and especially with the book that we have in our possession now, a missed opportunity to possibly complete the narrative somehow. Maybe not totally complete the narrative, but to do whether it's a single CD release or a box set of the piano and microphone tour. I know some of the key performances that would have gone directly in line with this book were the sort of Paisley Park performances, which was kind of for him warming up and kind of testing this out to see how the tour would flow. And also some performances during the Australian leg of that tour as well. So, it's easy to kind of go back and say, should have done this, should have done that. But I believe that something of the magnitude of The Beautiful Ones, along with the piano and microphone tour, like I said, maybe at minimum a single CD, but it would be hard to pick the best performance. But I would say, a box set to have been included, maybe to have included along with the book, maybe 2 CDs, one of the Paisley Park performances, maybe one of the Australian performances, and then saving maybe some of the Atlanta ones, especially the last Atlanta show, for something, further down the line. But I do believe that it was a missed opportunity to get that out. Because also, too, I know that maybe if they did have that as an idea, maybe it got bumped in favor of getting out the 1999 Super Deluxe Edition, which I see the logic in that, given that, again, the estate, they still have to keep money going to, offset any tax debt because he had no will. And like I said, just kind of, go with what's going to work, what's going to reach the masses, not only just the diehard fans, but the masses of, mainstream music fans as well. So I kind of get it if they did have it as an idea and it got bumped in favor of 1999. It doesn't mean that you can't revisit that at some point. I haven't been keeping up with the sales of the book. Some things that I've read, it's number one, I think, on the bestsellers list, if I'm not mistaken. But, if it's a major seller, maybe some point within the next year or two, in between some of the releases that we'll be getting in the next couple of years, it might not be a bad idea to re-release the book. And like I said, maybe have something to where you can get a download of the piano microphone performances, or like I said, reissue the book, because it may end up in paperback at some point if it's, if it sells well enough. Maybe time a release for that, for that time as well. So it's just a thought, just something off the top of my head, just an opinion. But what's most important is, what do you think? Do you think that it was a missed opportunity to include even more of, Prince's openness in telling his life story through the tour? And, the more that I'm thinking about it, the more I feel that should have been the reality, to release the book and the piano and microphone. Because, even with the book, Prince wanted to do something different. And with Prince being about music, then what better way for him to have told his life story than through something like piano and microphone? Like I said, it's interactive in a way. It's different. And it's something I think that might work. But what do you think? Do you think that it was a missed opportunity to have included a piano and a microphone, either as a single CD or a box set, with the Beautiful Ones book? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, we're going to end that topic and move on to our third topic. And our third topic is, what should a Prince documentary include? Okay, so we know from almost going back a couple of months now that the director Ava DuVernay is no longer directing the Netflix Prince documentary. No replacement has been announced so far as I know. And there's also been no further word on the proposed documentary for Apple TV about the Minnesota Dance Theater benefit that Prince did in August of 1983, which saw the debut of I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, and Purple Rain, which was included on the actual Purple Rain album, of course, with kind of mixes and edits and overdubs for the finished album. And again, no directors have been announced for that. No release dates for either the Netflix documentary or for the, we'll call it Purple Rain documentary for now. So no additional dates have been announced for its release. So with that, what should a Prince documentary include? So, with this topic, I'm going to discuss the Netflix documentary only. So, any special topics such as the Minnesota Dance Theater benefit at First Avenue, of course, should be left as a singular documentary piece for future documentaries down the line. But for this one, we're talking a Netflix documentary, which I would assume be hopefully multiple parts. I don't think you could tell an entire Prince narrative in just 2 hours, 3 hours, not even 4 hours, really. I mean, you could, but I believe someone like Prince should get a multi-episode documentary series, and Netflix would be the perfect example for that. Something like a HBO or any other cable network, television network, it would get narrowed down to like, 2 parts. Like I said, you could put a lot in 4 hours, but again, something like this deserves, to me, something like a Ken Burns or like a Beatles anthology scope where it's, multi parts, 6, 7, 8, 9 parts. In the case of Netflix, they would probably just dump every single episode in at once. Some of the other streaming services have now gone to doing just like, say, network television or cable television, where it's one episode at a time, kind of giving you that chance to build the hype, have those water cooler discussions the next day. But Netflix, as far as I know, still just dumps everything onto one in one night. So you would have to do some serious binge watching for that. So again, I feel that, yeah, it should be a multi-part event. And like I said, very Ken Burns in scope. If you've ever watched any of his documentaries on PBS, the most recent one was on country music, which I saw most of it. I didn't see the beginning, but it's quite an eye-opener. Like I said, I wasn't a big country music person, but through that documentary, I have a deeper appreciation for the genre and its influence on American music. So he's also done things on the West. There's a series he's done on jazz that's really good. You should check it out. The Civil War, baseball, just pretty much everything Americana. But back to the Netflix documentary, yeah, I feel like a Prince documentary should be treated with that level of respect and given that amount of time in which to tell a narrative. Also, a recommendation I would have would be to include Prince's voice as much as possible. And that being said, if there's any archived recorded interviews, I know by the time we sort of got to maybe the 90s, Prince was very anti-tape recorder, where at that time, I think even still today, there's some type of a recording device used for journalistic interviews. But Prince was very against that starting with the 1990s. So you probably wouldn't get a lot of narrative from him unless you pull things from certain TV shows where he's done interviews. And, during that later period, you can probably utilize that and possibly utilize some of the footage as well. But anything before the 1990s, any recorded interviews that you can use for him to help tell the story. Two of the biggest examples of where that is utilized to great effect is the Tupac Resurrection documentary. If you haven't seen that, I recommend you go check that out. And also Imagine John Lennon, and that was released in 1988, but you can still find a copy of it somewhere. And those two documentaries really work in the way that they actually have the artists themselves tell the story. And I think, again, doing a Prince documentary for Netflix, again, giving it the proper respect. Yes, use his own voice as much as you can. Anything else? Again, kind of biting off of the Ken Burns style a little bit. If there are any personal letters that are relative to a particular subject in that documentary, utilize voice actors. Not necessarily professional voice actors, but get a celebrity voice. Definitely Prince fans. If there's any actors out there that would volunteer for that, utilize them to read any personal letters that may be in the archive that can help tell the story or help flesh out the narrative of the documentary. And I would also recommend to pursue the theme that is explored in The Beautiful Ones. And again, we're in spoiler territory here. So basically, the mission statement of The Beautiful Ones is funk, freedom, and ownership. And have it to be something that can inspire the individual, inspire communities, which was what the intention of The Beautiful Ones was. And to a degree, it did accomplish that. So why not carry that mission further, one step further, and include that in the documentary? Have that documentary, have his life story be the example of those three things. Define the funk, what freedom meant to him and how it can be relevant in the lives of others, and also ownership as well. And again, have that narrative expanded to be Prince's voice. Usually a documentary director, when they pick a subject, like a Michael Moore, it's because they pick a subject that they're passionate about. So you would have to utilize a director that would have a similar vision for that. And, not somebody to come in and have whatever preconceived notion of Prince or pick out one little thing about Prince and have that be the documentary. Again, maybe certain special subjects you can get away with that. But if you're telling sort of an epic documentary, again, like I said, along the lines of a Beatles anthology or any Ken Burns documentary that's multi-part, some of the other Netflix documentaries like Hip Hop Evolution, which is a multi-part documentary, have that narrative give Prince the respect that he would deserve in that, in that field of getting his mission statement across. And with that being said, keep the music at the center. If you can kind of connect the dots, if you can kind of profile in a way based on what we have already, based on the Beautiful Ones book, that type of openness. The through line throughout his entire career was that he always wanted people to get to know him through the music. So if there's certain songs that you can tie to a certain event, or you can tie it or tie its inspiration to a certain point, then use that music to help tell the story as well. Where, again, if you don't have the opportunity to utilize Prince's voice based on archived interviews, then definitely let the music do the talking as well. And not just rely on whoever, if they're going to utilize a narrator in this. Basically, I think Tupac Resurrection, Imagine John Lennon, of course, Beatles Anthology. They don't utilize the narrator in those. And that's something that can work for this. Or in this case, you can do a mixture of it. But again, keep the music at the center. Have it be also, like I said, if there's certain hit songs or deep album cuts, B-sides, like I said, if there's something in those lyrics that are, like I said, you can tie its inspiration to an event, definitely utilize that. And where you can't use Prince's voice, or if there's not something else where you can utilize a celebrity to read a personal letter, then let the music do the talking, definitely. And again, use a mixture of the hits plus any relevant vault material. Just don't have it be just a collection of unreleased songs. Again, let those unreleased songs tell the story. Let his spirit guide whoever, the directors, the editors, everyone involved. Let the spirit guide to the pieces that should be utilized for this documentary. And since we're on the subject of music, the accompanying soundtrack should be as expansive as you can possibly make it. If you can, I hate drilling box sets. It's kind of, I don't know, kind of not necessarily overdone. But in this particular case, maybe at least a 3 to 4 CD set should accompany this documentary, meaning that the day that documentary drops, you drop it on a Friday, then that Friday you should be able to go to wherever. Amazon should be delivering that 3 to 4 CD set to your house, or you should be at the record store picking it up, bringing it home. And on that CD, if of course you can't help but to utilize the hits. This will be a tricky one because obviously the estate wants to focus on the deluxe editions, certain reissues, so you would have a lot of the original songs there. Now, of course, I can't speak for all of America, but if it inspires you to become a Prince fan where you weren't before and you go get whatever album that's available, definitely. But yeah, if you're going to release a sort of accompanying CD with this, or soundtrack CD with this documentary, I'm going to lean towards the hits. They should be alternate mixes of those hits, and those songs should be mixed in with, of course, unreleased vault material, because that'll get all the diehards in as well. And obviously through this documentary, you are going to get a sense of this man's work ethic, his artistry, just the skill. So you're going to be aware of the vault. You're going to be aware of the thousands of unreleased songs. So having that as a mixture, it would bring the diehards in, but it would also hip any newbies to what's going on with that, and something that they would, be glad to have, because this will be their first experience, unlocking all of this, possessing all of this. So definitely the soundtrack, 3 to 4 CDs. Hits should be alternate mixes of the hits and any unreleased vault material. And I'm going to add to that, have the unreleased vault material be songs that are relative to the documentary. So that's it in a nutshell. So that is basically what I think a Prince documentary should include. And again, like I said, I've only limited this to the Netflix documentary. Obviously, we all have ideas of a million documentaries, but for this one, no playing around on this one, folks. So, but what's most important is, what do you think? What ideas do you have for a Prince documentary? Should it be a multi-part thing? Do you think it can be told in 2 hours or 4 hours, 2-night event? But we're talking other networks. But what do you think? Leave me a comment and let me know. So we're going to end that topic, which is actually our final topic. And then we're going to move on to the album spotlight. And this week's album spotlight is Purple Rain. But not just any Purple Rain. We're talking the Paisley Park Remaster. All right, so this one is probably going to be a divisive subject amongst a lot of people. Basically, again, when Prince regained his masters in 2014, one of the first orders on the agenda was a bona fide remaster and reissue of the Purple Rain album. And for those of us that remember, 2015 went by, nothing. And, there were people on Twitter that even asked Prince, when would we ever see it? And his response was, ask Warner Brothers. So, of course, we don't get the Purple Rain remaster until 2017. Now, where it starts to divide people is that the first CD, which is a remaster of the original album. All right, but before we dive into the album spotlight, I'm going to give a quick definition of mastering and remastering. All right, so basically a master is the recording that will be the definitive copy that is duplicated for the end result, usually for other formats, and that could be vinyl records, CDs, DVDs, whatever. But mostly we're talking in this case vinyl records and CDs for this matter. So that is the basic definition of a master. Now, a remaster refers to the changing the quality of sound, and of course it includes images as well, or both, but we're limiting this to, again, vinyl records and CDs. So a remaster is the changing of the quality of sound of a previously created recording. So that being said, basically mastering or remastering is not an easy process, and any engineer will tell you this. Now, for those that are sort of like budding musicians or budding producers, I'm going to start with this and say, do not be fooled by people that are offering you online, oh, we can master your record in 1 hour. It is not that easy of a process, boys and girls. I've taken a stab at it myself, and I'm going to say I need a whole lot more work at it. I know the basics. I just use Audacity to do everything, like with this podcast. Some things, to create the theme song for Amari Purple Talk, some other things as well. But like I said, my mastering skills need work, and I'm not even an engineer. I've done it. I know how to do it, but don't bring me your record in hopes that it's going to be the next Sgt. Pepper. It's not going to happen. What I do is just strictly for me and me only, and that's it. So anyway, getting back to mastering and remastering. So you got the definition of a master, which is the definitive recording. And usually that's based off of, in the case of a recording session, that's based off of the multi-track mix, multi-track recordings of, any song or single or album. And then the remaster is the changing of quality of that sound from the original masters. Okay, so with that out of the way, and with my disclaimer out of the way that this is not an easy job, folks, the controversy with this particular piece, and I'm talking the Purple Rain 2017 remaster, which has been called according to the Super Deluxe edition of Purple Rain, the Paisley Park Master, in which this was mastered at Paisley Park, which was a very state-of-the-art studio that Prince built in 1987, and obviously has the capabilities to do master recordings, which is not a bad thing. But where people think it's a bad thing is where he enlisted the aid of Joshua Welton. Joshua Welton, his wife Hannah Welton, was the drummer for Third Eye Girl, which is Prince's last band that was not the New Power Generation. But he was also brought in as a keyboardist. There was something that Prince saw in him to where he saw that Joshua Welton had some pretty good production skills, of which you get a taste of on two of Prince's last albums. Let's see, I believe Artificial Age, he might have been some co-production capacity, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely the Hit and Run was all production by Joshua Welton, with Prince handling the keyboard. I mean, not the keyboard, but basically just doing bass and guitar on a lot of those tracks for that album. So, and, I mean, he helped Prince kind of stay contemporary, so to speak, without being corny. So I think he worked very well on that level. There's no, radio, how I grew up with radio, MTV, how I grew up with MTV or videos. It's not the same world anymore. So it's debatable on what's a hit, what's not a hit. But just to my ears, I think he did a pretty good job at keeping Prince relative, again, without sounding corny. I prefer a lot of that stuff over other attempts to where Prince was trying to be contemporary. I'm not going to start any controversy there, but I thought it worked. Long story short. Now, again, producing and mixing is completely different from the mastering process. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work to do. So all this backstory out of the way, long story short, Prince enlisted Joshua Welton to oversee the master, or the remaster in this case, of the Purple Rain album, Prince's biggest album, period. And I guess the controversy lies in that's a heavy responsibility to give to someone that's pretty young. But the proof is in the sound. And basically the end result of the Paisley Park remaster has literally divided the room. So these are sort of my thoughts on the Paisley Park remaster of Purple Rain. So here we go. So I've already given a basic explanation of what mastering and remastering is. Now, that being said, if you guys remember back when Prince was attempting to go onto Facebook, he tried it for a while and then just abandoned Facebook altogether in favor of Instagram and Twitter. He seemed to be able to navigate those a lot better than Facebook. But during his short time on Facebook, there was a post explaining the frequency of 432 hertz. I'm not going to get into a long explanation on what that is, but long story short, 432 hertz as a frequency is supposed to be a very peaceful, inducing frequency. So again, you guys can look that up. Like I said, I'm not going to get into a lengthy discussion on frequencies and things of that nature. I know I've done some things utilizing that frequency. You do have to have a different set of ears when you listen to it. And for the most part, it's pretty peaceful. But that's just my opinion, because apparently my theory is that he may have mastered, well, in this case, remastered at that frequency, which I'm going to tell you is not the industry standard. And therein lies the difference. So, again, you have to really kind of listen to this thing with a different set of ears. But that's my theory. I don't have any proof that they utilize that theory. But as I was listening to this Paisley Park remaster, that's one of the things that sort of popped into my head about it. So that's my theory as to it may be possible that that frequency was utilized. And if you're used to hearing something based on the industry standards, to which there is a mastering frequency, to which some of the best sounding records, especially if you're talking about vinyl, were done based on the mastering procedures of Columbia Records, which is now Sony. But again, we're not going to get into a lengthy discussion on that. But basically what this is what I hear now versus what I've been hearing ever since 1984. So I took the opportunity to kind of break out the 2017 remaster and play it. Usually I haven't really played the original album in a long time. Usually when I break out the super deluxe edition of Purple Rain, I listen to the vault material and then select extended mixes and B-sides on disc 3. And I've only watched the Purple Rain live DVD like twice since I've had it. So, but getting back to the Paisley Park remaster, basically I've started to gauge my opinion based on my two favorite songs on Purple Rain, which is in no particular order, The Beautiful Ones and Computer Blue. And with those two songs, to these ears anyway, I did notice subtle differences in certain sounds. There are some sort of, musical nuances that my ears have just been accustomed to ever since, I bought Purple Rain in 1984. And that's the vinyl mix, and that vinyl was done by Bernie Grumman Mastering. His company basically does the mastering of probably 98% of the music industry. Of course, I don't really keep up these days as much as I used to, but I'm still going to go with that as a guess. But in the case of Prince's material, Bernie Grumman has done a lot of the remastering or mastering throughout Prince's career when he was alive, as well as this Purple Rain Deluxe, the 1999 Super Deluxe, maybe a few other things as well. But anyway, but like I said, there's some nuances that are just buried in the mix with the Paisley Park remaster, as opposed to what my ears were accustomed to listening to Purple Rain, whether it was on vinyl or the original CD that came out probably when CDs, like around 86, 87 or so. For an example, The Beautiful Ones, the Linn drums aren't as deep on the Paisley Park remaster as it is on any original pressings or any 180 gram pressings on vinyl of the Purple Rain album. So that's something that I noticed. Yeah, they aren't as deep. But, however, the cymbals pop out more on the Paisley Park remaster. Computer Blue also has similar differences. I kind of prefer the Computer Blue version on disc 2 of the deluxe edition, which was an unreleased extended version. But again, what my ears were accustomed to listening to Purple Rain from 1984 on, I kind of lean more towards that original mastering more so, and as well as the 2015 vinyl reissue of that album that's on 180 gram vinyl. Also, when Doves Cry, the opening guitar riff to me didn't have the same punch as what my ears were used to since 1984. However, the mix as the song goes on gets better throughout the rest of the song. And again, remember, this is somebody who's very green at mastering. So if there are any engineers out there that are listening that agree with this assessment, yeah, that's probably a rookie mistake that just ended up on the final edition here. But like I said, yeah, the rest of the mix, it punches just the way that, I first heard When Doves Cry back in May of 1984. So, like I said, it sounds great throughout the rest of the song. To me, the standouts on the Paisley Park remaster are Purple Rain and Darling Nikki. Now, for Darling Nikki, the Linn drum, the hi-hats are more prominent. Purple Rain, it sounds like it breathes a lot better to me on the Paisley Park remaster on that. And it explains a lot. Like, I used to just kind of, I get Purple Rain. It really never was my favorite song on the Purple Rain album. I get it in the context of the movie. There's different live versions that I like a lot better than the original album. But the Paisley Park remaster has really changed my listening experience for this. So I'm more open to listening to Purple Rain, the song, here more so than on any configurations of vinyl that had been released prior to this one. So my personal opinion overall is the overall mix, I should say, is sacrificed to pop out the vocals. Like, the vocals are a lot crisper. They're cleaner to me when I listen to this version of it. So with that being said, like I said, mastering or remastering, it's not an easy process. Can't be done in an hour. I think those that do that, it's basically what they're doing is just making your recording sound louder. That's about the gist of it. And yeah, that can be done with one click or two clicks. But to truly get a fully remastered sound, like I said, I like a lot of disc 2 on this and disc 3. I did note there is a subtle mistake when it comes to the long version of Erotic City, that sort of opening sound. There's a glitch in there that you don't get on the single version of it on that CD. So if you've heard me discuss the possibility of another Purple Rain Deluxe, a more expanded version, there is an issue of long-lived vinyl. The current issue has Prince on the cover. The cover story is the 1999 Super Deluxe. They do hint at the possibility of somewhere in the future of kind of doing an expanded version. So hopefully they'll go in and clean it up. And I'm guessing if you don't have the current deluxe edition of Purple Rain, you can best believe that by the time they reissue a super deluxe edition, that this one is going to go away. There also, I believe it was last episode, if not probably the episode before, I mentioned the possibility of what a super deluxe edition, well, no, it wasn't last, it was 2 episodes ago, what a super deluxe edition of Purple Rain should include. And like I said, my overall theory is that this Paisley Park remaster is going to go away. But I argued in that episode that Paisley Park remaster should be included at least on a 5th, 6th, or 7th DVD that would include, a 5.1 surround mix of the current definitive Purple Rain remaster is going to end up being. Dolby Atmos of that same remastering of the original album, and including, just for completeness sake, the Paisley Park remaster. So again, like I said, it's not bad. He's not bad as a first-time mastering engineer. Not great, but like I said, it's not easy. And I get it. It says in The Beautiful Ones, Prince says in his own words, he owns Purple Rain. So, to keep it in-house that way, to maintain that level of ownership, that might have been the next level, to where, the more experienced that Joshua Welton could have been as a mastering engineer, then there could have been a time for, a foreseeable time where, the rest of Prince's catalog would have been remastered by him. But, I can see where where this divides the room, so to speak. But like I said, my overall thoughts on it, it's not bad. Like I said, I'll listen to it again. It did, like I said, change my ears on Purple Rain, the song itself. But, as far as, like I said, my favorites, The Beautiful Ones and Computer Blue, there are subtle differences. But if I want to go back to how my ears are used to listening to those songs, then I can just break out the vinyl and play that. So, but what's most important? What do you think? Did you mind the Paisley Park remaster of the original Purple Rain album? Were you one of the ones that were sort of negative on it? Leave me a comment. Let me know. And that's going to end our album spotlight. And with that, we're going to move to our final segment of the show, which is Bite the Boots. And basically what we do with Bite the Boots every week is we sort of take a page out of the Frank Zappa playbook and take a look at a bootleg that's in circulation and pitch to the estate that, hey, take a look at this. Maybe you should officially put this out. And this week's Bite the Boots is going to be Prince and the New Power Generation live, Miami, June 1995. And this was a segment of the Ultimate Live Experience Tour. This was Prince at what I call the very peak of the symbol period. I know it kind of went on and on up until the year 2000, but those key years of 1993, 94, and 95 to me were when, I don't know, how can I say it? The symbol worked best. If you haven't heard my Emancipation special, go on to YouTube. You can just do a Google search, Amari Purple Talk Emancipation Special. That should just pop it right up. But in that, I discuss how the name change may have helped or hindered his career. But my overall thoughts on that was once Emancipation was released, then he should have gone back to Prince. But we understand that there was uh, one little contract beat still lingering, which would have been his publishing contract, and that didn't get cleared up until the end of 1999. But anyway, but back when, the battle with Warner Brothers, this was sort of the peak of that battle. So basically this tour, the Ultimate Live Experience, basically he was performing nothing but songs from the tracks that ended up on Come and the Gold Experience, as well as tracks from New Power Generation's Exodus as well. So there were no greatest hits on this particular piece, and there were a lot of covers as well. Of course, the big one, Graham Central Station's The Jam. It's one of my favorite Larry Graham and Graham Central Station tracks. The famous Santana medley. We know that probably a bigger influence on Prince than Jimi Hendrix was Carlos Santana. So during the certain nights on this tour, it would open up with a medley of Santana tracks like Soul Sacrifice, Jungle Strut. But we're focusing on the Miami, June 8th and June 9th of 1995. So this you could put out as a 2 CD set, as the songs are the set list is different on both nights. Now the only hiccup would be the song "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World." You've heard me discuss that in previous episodes of Amari Purple Talk as well. Basically, for those that are just jumping in to the show, long story short is that there is a lawsuit. A songwriter in Italy is claiming that he wrote the song or wrote a song similar, and Prince stole it. And it's a ridiculous lawsuit. And because it was filed in Italy, the court system there, it takes forever. So again, like I said, if you're just jumping in, go back to previous episodes where I have the topic of will we ever see the Gold Experience again? Because this one song is preventing that from being reissued, and would probably prevent something like this from being released as well. Now, some workarounds for that is you don't necessarily have to do the concert track by track. You can take as many elements from this as possible. If you want to include the covers, you can. You can still make this a 2 CD set, just about. The only thing is, on both CDs, you would have to remove "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World" on it. But you can either do that, keep the 2 CDs, or again, we didn't call this Bite the Boots. We used to call this a project wish list. So one of my previous wish list items was the studio versions of a lot of the one-word songs such as Loose, Let It Go, Now, Endorphin Machine. Just make that a one whole compilation of songs, omitting "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World," and this could be your serious buffer until either the lawsuit gets cleared up and you can release the Gold Experience in its entirety, or this would just replace the Gold Experience itself. So you can pretty much get away with doing the same thing with this. If you didn't want to utilize the studio versions of the songs to do a compilation, this particular set of tracks from this, and not maybe just Miami, but I know the Miami one is a very popular one out of that tour. So hence why we're spotlighting it this week. So, yeah, you can. I'd say this would be a better replacement. Like I said, a better buffer. We know that the Versace experience was sort of the quick cash grab buffer to replace the gold experience. Otherwise, I think had there not been a lawsuit, we would be holding the gold experience in our hands as a reissue instead of the Versace experience, or the Versace experience would have been left as just the record store day curio. So, but yeah, I think you can get away with doing this Prince and the New Power Generation live, Miami, June 1995. I think this would be a better replacement for it. This lineup of the New Power Generation, which has Michael Bland, Sonny T, Tommy Barbarella, Morris Hayes, of course Prince, and you also have Maite. This is my favorite lineup of the New Power Generation. To me, if you had a battle of the bands where you would get the original members of the time and go head to head with this lineup of the NPG, whoo, yeah, that would be a battle. That would be the battle I would want to see. I would have loved to have seen that. Hopefully in some universe that's taking place. But yeah, I would definitely would have loved to seen that. But that, because of the just overall funkiness, that is my favorite lineup of the New Power Generation. That band brought the funk. Things I've seen on TV from, bootlegs that I have. Yeah, that band was on the one, no doubt. So yeah, I would definitely like to see this released. Like I said, it would be a great replacement for the Gold experience. You have some of the songs from there. Like I said, there's a couple from Come. There's also tracks from Exodus. Probably the only two things from the pre-Symbol era. There's 7. And then there's on the June 9th performance, I Love You and Me. So those are the only two quote-unquote Prince songs that were done during this time. So yeah, I definitely would like to campaign for this. Like I said, the estate isn't listening to me per se, but if word gets out, or like I said, write letters, send tweets, reference, whatever episode of Amari Purple Talk, and like I said, giving ideas away for free, folks. So I would like to see this happen one day. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this would be a good something for the estate to put out officially? Are there other concerts from that Ultimate Live experience you think would work better? Let me know. Leave a comment. And that's going to end this episode of Amari Purple Talk. Again, you can find me on Twitter at Amari_now, and also Richard Cole _now. Lots of underscores, lots of now. There's a reason behind it. It will be revealed later. So, also too, don't forget, if you have ideas, topics, you can either send them to my email, Amari and that's Amari, COMM, @gmail.com. Or you can go on my website, www.amaricommunications.com. And like I said, submit a topic, submit a question. Like I said, again, thanks to all the Facebook crowd. Seems like a lot of comments and things of that nature are done there. If you're better, if you feel comfortable doing it that way, that's fine as well. I noticed through Libsyn, you should be able to comment via Facebook, and then that would pop up to where I could see it on the Libsyn site. But otherwise, like I said, you can just go to my website and you can leave comments as well. Or like I said, if Facebook itself is more comfortable for you, go right ahead and do that too. So again, that's going to end this episode. Thanks once again for tuning in. Like I said, big shout out to Michigan. Thanks for the love and support each week. And tune in again next week. And until then, keep it purple and on the one.